What up, y'all? I just want to show y'all the tasty bakes I made for Thanksgiving. I made a strawberry crunch cake, a caramel pound cake, sweet potato pies, sweet potato cheesecake, and I also made peach cobbler, but I didn't put it on here. My bad. First, let's start with my pound cake. I mixed my butter, my margarine, and my cream cheese together, but you have to soften it. Then, I have my flour sifted and my sugar and my eggs waiting on the side. But your eggs got to be room temperature too. So I blend everything till it's creamy. So I put my blend on the creamy thing. Then I go ahead and put my sugar in there. And I put my sugar in, a little at a time, so it can mix up. Yeah, so I always like to make my pound cake first because it takes the longest to cook. So I just add the ingredients in. But just make sure, that your eggs and your butter, margarine, and cream cheese is room temperature. Now, I incorporate my eggs, but I incorporate my eggs in 2 at a time. I watch that mix and mix and mix. But yeah, and I always keep it on, I think level 5 is my mixer. And that's like creamy because I want the consistency to be very creamy. So it's just mixing up. And also remember, to be, I don't really measure because I've been making this cake for a long time. But then I add my vanilla. And I ran out, but I put more in there. I ran out in that bottle. But, usually during the seasons, I have plenty of vanilla because I love vanilla. Now, I add my flour in, and I add my flour in a little at a time, so it can blend in, and I just go ahead and blend it accordingly. And I start that off low, So basically it can kind of mix up slow so the flour won't go everywhere. But I'm glad I got a protector. For my mixer so my flour does not go everywhere. So that's a good thing, you know what I mean? So I just go ahead and mix that up. Make sure it's mixed until it's smooth and creamy. Once again, I just like for my pound cakes to have a smooth consistency, if that makes any sense. I just want it to be smooth, right? After I blend everything up, this is my friend and my savior. I love the Baker's Joy because it has the flour incorporated in the spray. So I make sure I spray my pan, even though it's non-stick. I still like to, lightly spray it. That way that, it just comes straight out. So I just do it like that so it comes straight out. After that, I evenly pour, and you look at that mixture. You see how creamy that looks? Yeah, I make sure that it's spread and I pour it in evenly all the way around. But the mixture is very smooth. Like with the pound cake, it is very rich because of the ingredients I use. It's just very rich, you know what I mean? But I'm telling you, everybody's always requesting my pound cake. Like it said. Like even, at church, everywhere, it's always like, are you going to make a pound cake this Sunday? What they don't understand is, pound cake, it don't have that many ingredients, but it is kind of, it take a little while to make it, you know what I mean? Only because of the ingredients and how long it has to bake. Because it bakes for about an hour and 15 minutes. But yeah, as you can see, I took my spatula to make sure it was even. And voila, this is how it looks once it's done. all golden and brownish. Yeah, I mean, this is the #1 stunner for the holidays. I think my family have a fit if I ain't make this pound cake. But yeah, so this is how it looks. Now, I'm going to make my caramel glaze that's going to go over the pound cake. And I use butter, evaporated milk, and brown sugar. I also use a little vanilla. Once again, the vanilla. But I also make sure that the butter is melted. As you can see, I'm moving my vanilla to the front. But yeah, so I make sure my butter is melted. And I always use a wooden spoon. When you're doing your caramel sauce, it's good to use a wooden spoon because you have to keep stirring. Once this consistency starts to bubble, you want to make sure your wooden spoon in there because you're going to have to keep stirring. So as you can see, it looks like a caramel sauce right now, as you can see. So you just keep mixing it well together, the butter and the brown sugar. And I put my vanilla in there and just make sure that everything is pretty much smooth. You know what I mean? So I'm going to drop a little of my vanilla in there. So once I put the vanilla in there, you're going to see a little sizzle. And I'm through with that bottle. Like I said, I use a lot of vanilla during the holidays, so I have to make sure I have it on hand. But yeah, so I'm just making sure that it's smooth. As you can see, it's kind of bubbling on the edges, which means it's doing really good. But it looks like caramel right now. As you can see, that look like caramel. Caramel. But yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. I get goofy sometimes. But yeah, so I just make sure that I'm mixing, because it has to be smooth. Then I add my evaporated milk. And as you can see, the bubbling, it's bubbling now. But I gotta hurry up and mix it, as you can see, because I don't want it to, what you don't want it to do is start crystallizing. If you got to keep stirring so it doesn't crystallize. I think that's what it is. So you have to make sure that it's blended very well, because that brown sugar will crystallize on you if you're not stirring. But I use almost a whole can of evaporated milk, just slightly off. So I would say 3/4 of a can. So basically, I use almost the whole can, but I don't use the whole can. But as you can see, it's blending in nicely. And it gives it that caramelized glaze. So I'm just whisking, as you can see, to make sure that it's all blended. And that is how the glaze is looking. But you know, of course, it's going to be, it has to cook, it has to bubble. And you know, that's when you know it, you know, once it bubbles up, pretty much like this, pretty much, you know what I'm saying, you leave it on. I think I cook it for maybe about 5 minutes, if that, 5 or 6 minutes, you know, just so all the brown sugar can basically blend, so it can have a smooth consistency as well. Because you don't want to, sometimes it comes out, I'm just ain't gonna even lie, sometimes it comes out a little rocky, but guess what? My family still love it. They don't be caring, and this is the final result. There you have it, your caramel pound cake. I'm telling you, the cake is gonna be gone. Now, on to my sweet potato pies. What I do is I go ahead and put my butter in there, and I put my sweet potatoes over the butter so it'll melt And as you can see, I'm just kind of, mushing it around with the butter so it can blend in before, everything. But I get my potatoes really, really soft, and I peel my own skin off so it won't be so harsh, you know what I mean? So I do all that myself. So I make sure that I incorporate all of the sweet potato. Then I add my sugar, my nutmeg, I add my vanilla, once again, vanilla, and I go ahead and blend up. So once you blend all this to a nice consistency, because you want it to be really, really smooth. And now, like I said, I don't really measure. I don't measure, so I can't really tell you. Just, I guess you can taste it or whatever. But yeah, so I'm adding in almost, once again, like a 3/4 can of evaporated milk. I think the evaporated milk does something to it, though. The evaporated milk kind of makes it smooth for me. You know what I mean? So I like the evaporated milk. I just like using evaporated milk, but I don't measure anything. So I can't really give you measurements, but I don't measure anything. But everything's always a hit. You know what I mean? And I did add 2 eggs to it. Now, I always use deep dish pie shells. I just like using deep dish pie shells. And I use about 2 large sweet potatoes or 3 medium sweet potatoes to make 2 sweet potato pies. And that's deep dish. So I make sure that they're leveled out, and I don't fill it to the top. You know what I mean? I don't do it to the top because when they bake, they tend to rise up. So I don't do it all the way to the top. You know what I mean? Because with the egg incorporated, it's kind of going to get a little rise. But once you take them out the oven, they'll settle down. So you don't want to put your mix all the way to the top. Me taste testing. Yep. Yep, so those are sweet potato pies. Now I'm going to make the sweet potato cheesecake pies. First, I make my cheesecake blend, and then I used cream cheese. I used 3 eggs. I used sugar. I used vanilla flavor. And that's my sugar. And as you can see, I'm pouring it in, You can go ahead and pour that in. And I think you use a cup of sugar for that. It's my cup of sugar. I use my sour cream, and you put like a 1/3 cup of sour cream in there. And that's my mixture. I set that to the side while I make my sweet potato. The sweet potato portion. There go my sweet potato all mashed up. Then you have to use 2 eggs for that. You have to use sugar. I use nutmeg. And I use vanilla. Vanilla is like, that's like the center of attraction here, the vanilla. I also use the pinch of salt too. For both of them, I use a pinch of salt. But as you can see, and I used a 1/3 cup of melted butter. And I'm blending all that up, making sure that's smooth. As you see, my dishes piling up. But once I put them in the oven, I'll go ahead and clean, because I like to clean as I go. But yeah, so as you can see, you see how smooth that mixture looking? Now what I did was I put the cream cheese filling, the cream cheese or the cheesecake part of it at the bottom. And then I put the other at the top and made a little swirly thing. And voila! There go my sweet potato pies and my cheesecake. Now for the strawberry crunch cake, y'all. I had already made my cakes, my strawberry cake. So let me show y'all how I did this frosting, because I did a strawberry cream cheese frosting, which was very, very good. I used a block of cream cheese and a stick of butter. And you already know. Voila, the vanilla. Once again, I used the vanilla. But I made sure that it was blended. But I used a block of cream cheese and, well, a block and a half. I'm just going to say I used a block and a half because I wanted to really taste like a cream cheesy kind of frosting, you know? So I make sure all that's whipped up. And this is my secret ingredient, y'all. I use strawberry syrup. I don't use a lot of it, but the strawberry syrup is going to give it that strawberry color, that pink color. And basically, I'll go ahead and whisk that on up. Whisk it up, whisk it up, whisk it up, whisk it up. Okay, yeah. But yeah, that was like a secret ingredient. You know what I'm saying? So this is something I tried new. I said, you know what I can do? Instead of using strawberry flavor extract, let me see if I can use a strawberry syrup and see how it comes out. So, hey, this was my first time making this type of frosting. So I was like, I hope my family liked this because this is a new frosting. But of course, you know, I use powdered sugar. You know, make sure that I use powdered sugar and I add it in little at a time. I use almost a whole bag. And I'm talking about maybe a regular size bag. If you use a regular size bag, you can use the whole thing. But I think my bag was a little bit bigger, so I didn't use the whole thing. But as you can see, I start off slow so it can incorporate, so the powdered sugar don't go everywhere. Then I just speed it up. But, you know, with this, I had to put it in the refrigerator for a little while. You know what I'm saying? So I just put it in the refrigerator for a little while after it was well blended and I had made it up. I put it in the refrigerator, you know, and let it cool. And then I let my cakes make sure they were all the way cool. And I frosted it up. What I used was those Oreo blondies, you know, the light Oreos. Crunched them up in my blender. And I used freeze-dried strawberries and crunched them up too. And voila. But I want to thank y'all for watching. Y'all tell me what's y'all favorite. Bye-bye.